Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the ComicBase live stream. I'm your host, Pete Bickford. I'm the ComicBase creator, actually, if you can believe it. And I'm going to be talking about the new ComicBase version 25.1 release. And I'm going to try to do something amazing. I'm going to try to get you excited about a point release for a software program. No, it's actually a real thing. And yeah, this is a special re-recorded live stream. We actually had so many technical difficulties with the glitching on the last live stream that we're just doing it all over again. So hopefully this will be more concise and to the point, and I will babble less than my usual want. But anyway, let's get straight into it. ComicBase 2025, 25.1, as I mentioned, it's a big quarterly release. We're always working on ComicBase, and we're always doing little bits, to make the program better every single day of the week, pretty much. But those ones come out as different build numbers once a quarter or so. We try to wrap them up into one big release so that it doesn't overwhelm you with just all sorts of weird little changes where you're always constantly updating your browser, updating, other things like that. So this is the one that wraps up everything we've done since the release of ComicBase 2025, just about 9 weeks ago. And it has been a lot of stuff. A lot of it was stuff that, we really kind of hoped to get into ComicBase 2025. And a lot of it also was just things that we thought of and thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if? And so we managed to get it all in there. We actually turned just a ridiculous number of builds to get that going. And I'm really excited to tell you all about it. So let's get to it. But first, I do want to say, number one, if this is the sort of thing that you're interested in, please hit the like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you are going to get notified when we post new things. We just posted a new video today showing off one of the demos I'm actually going to do in a different form later on in the video using some of the new features. But we do drop all these little instructional videos and neat things there. Make sure you get notified about it. So hit that bell icon if you're on YouTube, and we'll take care of that. And definitely subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and so forth. And we appreciate it. All right, so before I get to the programming portion of things, because of course that's what I do and I'm very excited about it, I do want to give a big shout out to all the other folks who make this happen. ComicBase, we've been working at this for 32 years, if you can believe it. We're actually coming up on our 33rd year of business, and it started out as a tiny little program. It was a huge database at the time. It covered 20,000 comic books, if you can believe it, in our first release. We are now, in the current version, we cover north of 1.25 million comic books, as well as tens of thousands of books, hundreds of thousands of magazines, and several million, millions of newspapers as well. It's just been a phenomenal amount of effort, and it's just been a whole team that's made that happen. A big part of that team is our editors, who are working every day to work on pricing and content submissions and indexing new comics as they come out every week and so forth. And also a big part of that is you folks. There's no way any team of folks, no matter how dedicated they are, and our guys are great, but we can't be in all countries everywhere, going to every little comic show where there's a special variant that dropped just at that one thing, where you're going to foreign countries where there's things that are only known to people in Belgium or whatever else. It is amazing that you guys, as you have been using the program, have been submitting that thing, all those things as corrections and submissions, which then go to our editorial staff to aggregate, and that becomes part of the big database that ComicBase has generated over all these years. So a big shout out to all of you. I want to give just to give an idea of the scope of what is built into ComicBase in terms of just pure data at this point. Let me throw up the stats from this week's update. So, oops, sorry, no. This is the typical production problems that we're so proud of here on ComicBase. Let me go back here, put my cell phone camera, and launch the graphic package over here. Let's get the right graphic up. There we go. Okay, so this is the stats for this week. 4,163 new items, 8,126 price and issue updates just this week alone. 2,800 comic title, and change. New covers have been added to the archive edition, bringing the total of the archive edition up to 1,072,513 covers. Absolutely crazy stuff. And so, one thing that I also want to put a little plug in there is say, well, why do you need all these covers? And, just point of reference, let me pop over to ComicBase here just for a moment, and let's show an old title that we're all very familiar with here. Here's The Defenders, right? And in the golden ages of 1972, when The Defenders came out there, you might remember price guides. Say the Overstreet price guide might have 3,000, 5,000, even little black and white pictures to come with it. in ComicBase, when we came out, we thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could do something a little bit bigger than that? And we said, okay, well, we're going to start out, we're going to have the pictures of all the #1 issues, but gosh, wouldn't it be great if someday we could collect all the pictures for all the issues as we go down? And so if you're holding a copy of Defenders #1 from 1972, you say, okay, isn't it cool that it looks like this? Hey, that's neat. And what #2 looks like, and so forth. And this is great. But think about comic collecting now in the year 2024. And let's say you're holding a copy of a comic book called Defenders #1. Your first question in your head is, okay, let's say, which series is it? Well, it was published in 2012, so okay, it's Defender's 4th series probably. I can see that right up here. But which #1 is it, right? Because we have variants everywhere these days. Is it the regular #1, the A cover, the B cover, the C cover, the blank variant cover you picked up at the comic show, the unmarked, remarked one for? But good God, it's a variant identification is just such a chore these days that it's what was really fun to have back in the old days when it was just talking about like all the cool covers that were in comics. This suddenly become, I'm going to say, damn near necessary if you're a current comic book collector, just to be able to make sense of this crazy world that we all live in. So anyway, it is amazing now that we've managed to, because with the archive edition, it was our dream. It used to come out on 4 DVDs. And then a couple of Blu-rays. Nowadays, it's typically done as a download of the whole thing, but it's just amazing for us to be able to have photo reference for well over 1 million covers of the whole thing. And so whenever I'm going and I'm looking at a comic book, yeah, sometimes I can find it by its barcode, sometimes I can find it by some other means, but just be able to say, oh yeah, it's that one. Just absolutely priceless. So anyway, I think it's cool, and I'm really, really happy we've been able to build on to this level. All right, so now I've given the content people their due. Let's go on to the cool new program stuff. All right, so to start with, and let me get my cursor back on my computer so I can see what I'm doing. Let's talk about new stuff we've added in terms of the program itself. All right, first up off the bat is, we've done a lot of work with making the program itself much smarter about how it uses screen space. So one thing that was great, when we started out is, comic books always, it was great when computers always got a little bigger every year. Think back to the 80s and the 90s and so forth. Your monitor was always a little bigger and so forth. A strange thing happened at some point is that your monitor got portable. It became an actual laptop. And it stopped being the case that every year you could count on there being more and more screen space available. And it became more of a game of how well can I use the screen space that I do have. And so we've done a lot of work with this latest version to let you use the space you've got in a really intelligent way. Now, you guys might know that on the main graph here, there is this little splitter. If you focus the cursor in between the top part and the bottom part, see how it changes to a little splitter graphic right there? You can actually control how it uses the top version versus the bottom version. Do I want to see really big pictures and a lot of data up top? Or do I want to be able to see as many issues of the comic book as possible as I get going? And people will choose something that makes sense depending on their monitor. Now, one thing that was a problem beforehand is there were neat things that we could have that didn't used to fit if you squished it all the way up to the top. So one of the things that we had is the issue value graph. All right, what that is whenever I click on any issue in the database, I can instantly see what has this thing been worth over the course of its history. So going back for 4 years, it's, what's Defenders #1 been worth? And it's also very cool. You can see it does an instant query over to Atomic Out and say, hey, if I want to pick up a copy of Defenders #1, what would it cost me? Turns out there's 5 copies available. You can get them as low as $28, which is probably a pretty rough copy, up to about $200, and you can actually make that happen right now. Now, it used to be that this thing would fit if you had the screen set to a certain point to make the graph there. And you notice the graph just got a little bit more deep, big and stuff. But we also made it now in this latest version that you can squish this thing down further than you ever could have before to see as much of your comic data as possible, and you can still keep the graph. Now, if you have a copy of ComicBase with you right now, if you've ever done that in the past, you probably noticed that we've turned, that if you squished it too far off, we said, hey, well, we can't fit the graph anymore. We're going to have to lose it. And so there's a good chance if you ever had the graph turned on, it's been turned off. Take a moment right now, if you're using ComicBase 25.1, go down to View and make sure you click the Include Value Graph option on here, and it'll never turn itself off anymore, because no matter how far you squish this up there, it's never going to run out of space for it. We can actually make it this tight, and it's still legible as a graph. You can still see all the stuff, and you still keep all that data. So very cool stuff, and I think you're going to dig it. So, take a moment and make that happen. While we're at it, you might have noticed another thing out here, which I set up very poorly for the demo, but I kind of gave away the gig, is the include status bar. We've been wanting to fit a status bar into the program for a really long time, which is to say, if you click this on here, a little tiny thing appeared down here at the bottom. And it took, in my screen, it's about 3/8 of an inch. And it just instantly gives you little information about what you're working with at any given moment. So if I don't have anything selected, the defenders, 176 items of the defenders. If I start selecting issues of the defenders, it says, oh yeah, okay, you selected 6 items. You have a total quantity of 5 for those issues. If I was tracking my cost for, I guess I only put in, cost for 1 or 2 of them, value of $213.20, price of $214 and so forth. And it keeps this going just in live dynamic time. And it's a wonderful thing because it's data there. It's there when you need it, and it doesn't ever get in your way. But if for whatever reason you feel like, no, I really want that 3/7 inches screen space back, that's fine. You can just turn it off, and you get to see just that little bit more of Avengers 8 number 2. For me, what's worth, I'm going to probably have the include status bar turned on my computer probably going forward, and this is going to be the thing that kind of wrecks every ComicBase screenshot for me from here on out, because it's one of the few things where I can actually see, yeah, there are versions of ComicBase prior to version 25.1, and there are ones after 25.1. I'll be able to tell which is which immediately just by looking down and say, is it showing a status bar or not? If it's got a status bar, it's clearly 25.1, which is going to make my art production people really, really happy, because it means they have to redo all the box art and all the other things that happen all through the websites to update them, because they'll just look that little bit out of date. So good stuff. All right, other things that are happening. Next thing I wanted to talk about, and this is like kind of gets into a sort of fundamental difference of how we treat your data and versus, brand X, the other guys. Pretty much, I mean, you could say we're old school. I mean, I'll own that one. And we have very much grown up on the idea that, when you have a personal computer, your data is yours. It's, we do not believe in the whole idea of like everything you do belongs to the great Borg entity, that controls the universe. No, you control your stuff. And that's been a very much a point of philosophy at human computing since we started. To that point, it's, when you use ComicBase and, we sell you the program, you own that program, and it keeps running after, it comes with a year of update subscription, which covers program and title and content and things like that. But honestly, if at the end of that year, you feel like we haven't earned your business, I mean, if you feel like, having us provide all the pricing and everything to keep your collection current, if you don't feel like that's worth, keeping your subscription up, that's fine. Your data stays with you because it was always with you. It's on your computer. And so it isn't like you put up on a server and it goes away if you didn't, you don't keep, paying for it. It's your stuff. And so that is an important point of control that we always wanted to have. Now, like with that, I mean, we always want to put the user in charge. We always want you to feel like you own your stuff and that you're in control of it. But we also want to give you all the advantages of sharing it out to the wider world, so you can use it on different devices. You can pick it up, from different places, things like that. All the things that the web does give you, but at the same time keeping you in, fundamental control of it all. To that end, we do a couple things to just, try to keep you safe. And this, and I do think this, if we're going to go to Spider-Man and the whole thing, with great power comes great responsibility. Well, with great control of your data comes responsibility for you to keep your data safe. So, if you were to, put a copy of ComicBase, do a bunch of work on it, and then take a blowtorch to your computer and destroy it all, we don't have a copy of that data, not unless you shared it with us. So that data would be gone. So we very much, in everything we do with ComicBase, we're trying to keep you safe and keep your data protected at all times. But at the same time, like I say, you're always in control. Now, some of the things that we do to keep you you safe as you're using ComicBase is you'll notice that we do a lot of backing up, right? So let's go to Preferences over here, and we go to Setup and go to Preferences. And you probably have seen that every time when you exit the program, by default, it keeps a total of, switch cameras over here. There we go. Setup, Preferences. There we go. Production. This is excellent. I could do this video thing. I really could. But you'll notice that it keeps a number of backups as you go, so that we by default keep a total of 5. That every time you exit the program, it makes a timestamp backup, and then once you've done the 5th one, it recycles the first one, and so forth. And it does that every single time you exit the program. So if some reason you did some crazy thing, you changed all your prices to be $1.99, and then say, "Whoa, what was I thinking?" Whatever that is, you can always go back in time and just say, "Let me load up the backup from before I did that," and that'll be cool. But let's say you've done those 5 backups, but let's say your hard disk fails. Let's say, because things can happen. Your hard drive can fail. It can get stuck, washed away in Hurricane Katrina, or these days Helene or Milton. It can be stolen by an ex-wife. That was it's grim, but these are all true stories. An ex-wife got tired of a customer who was spending too much time with his comic books and decided to kidnap his computer. Actual story. But so things can happen to your computer as a whole as well. And so to help you out with that, one of the things that we can offer is, and this does rely on you having a subscription, because when you're renting space on our servers, yes, you have to pay for it. But as long as your subscription is current, you can also automatically save to the cloud, which every time you exit the program, saves a copy, not just on your computer, but also spins it up and saves it to our computers for safekeeping. And also, what's very cool is that it makes it so that you can also view your data on a mobile app. It's completely unconnected to your desktop computer, and you'll still see a copy of all your data on there. So that's a cool thing, and we do that. But what are some other ways that things can go wrong in your life? And what are the things that we want to help you be insured against? Well, one of them is just pure database damage. Now, you guys have probably played video games where you launch the game and you always get the little message saying, while you see the spinny circle like this, make sure that you don't turn off the thing, because we're saving your game. And so the reason that they do that one, if you guys are really old school gamers, you might have remembered the style of video gaming where you'd go to, you've loaded up with all the armor and all the special weapons and everything else, and you go to fight the big boss monster, and it would happen as that you'd go out, you'd fight it, and it turns out he kills you. And in a lot of old games, there was a real penalty to getting killed. Like, you lost all your armor, you lost all your special stuff, you started back at the village with like a tunic on and like a sharp stick, and you had to try again and work your way up to the big fight with the monster. Now, they stopped doing that thing because it made people crazy. But in the meantime, a way that people would get around that is that right when they were going into the fight with the boss monster, if it looked like they were losing, before it could write that they'd lost, they would yank the power on their PlayStation or Xbox or whatever else, and it would be like, oh, I don't know what happened. Let's load up your last game. And if it could load your game, it would go and find you right where you were, all loaded to the gills with armor and magic and things like that, ready to fight the big boss guy, and you could try it again. Well, that worked out great, as long as it was reading your game and not writing your game. Because if you waited 1 second too long and it figured out that you just lost in the big fight against the boss monster, it would be writing out that you've just died. And at the point where you're writing, if you yank the power to your hard disk, bad things happen. In particular, what it would probably do is corrupt your save. And so you wouldn't just start out back at the village with a tunic on. You would start back on level 0, starting the entire game again. And at that point, you'd probably throw the game against the wall and quit in disgust. It would corrupt your file. So anytime that a hard disk is being written to, it's got a little bit of danger happening right at that moment, where you really don't want to stop it when it's in the middle of a write, because bad things can happen. And the same thing happens for databases. So it's, it isn't just your save game file, it's also your database. So if for some reason, you were in the middle of writing down your database to disk, you're getting ready to exit, and the dog steps on the power strip, or you happen to have a power outage, or just whatever happened. If that happened in the middle of a write, there's a good chance that the file that got written wouldn't be entirely right in the head. It would have, ideally most of the right stuff in it, but it might have critical bits of it missing or just in a weird state. And as a result, it might be you could load up the database and it would work pretty well for a long time. And then you would eventually get an error, which in SQLite, they give you a very user-friendly message for you. It's called malformed disk image, which makes normal people say, what? But we would then in ComicBase translate that as yeah, it looks like there's a problem with your database. You should really go to one of those backups. Now, again, we're trying very hard to keep you insulated from all the bad things that can happen in your life. And it isn't just power failures. You could have bad, your disk could start failing. You could get a virus. I mean, there are different things that could get you in this way. It is a very rare thing to happen, but when it happens to you, it's bad. So one of the things that, is always a problem is that if that happens, one thing that we know is that anytime you see an error message, anytime anyone sees this one, and we're all kind of like this to one extent or another. If I didn't expect to see a message that my computer put up on the screen, my very first inclination probably is, whoa, how do I make that message go away? And if you got a message that says malformed disk image, which sounds like blubbly, blubbly, blah. Even if there's some text after which says, hey, this is really bad, you should restore from a backup. I don't really fault people when they say, hey, okay. And if the program seems like it keeps running for the most part, they kind of say, oh yeah, okay, pushing on. I'm going to move on with my life. It did a thing, but the thing's over, and I'm going to keep on going. And then, a month later, yeah, that thing came up again. Well, the problem by then is you've blown through all your backups, right? You've been using the program and saving and so forth, but it's always had this little bit of damage in it. It never was quite right anymore. All right, so this doesn't happen much, but my goodness, when it happens to to a customer, it's life or death. So we want to make sure that this was something that we could recover from in a good way. And so we did some work on this one in a big way, and we added some new stuff to ComicBase. So one of the things that we do is if we ever detect that you've hit actual damage in your database file, it will say, whoa, there's a problem. And in the old days, we would actually have to say, okay, look, if you don't have a backup, if you have a backup, use the backup. If you don't have a backup, the thing you'll want to do is, export your data out to a text file, spin up a new database, import the data into that, and then you could get back to work. But that's very complicated. Nowadays, with ComicBase 25.1, if we detect that you've got any kind of structural damage in a database file in it, whatever, it says, yeah, you got a problem. Would you like us to make it better? And if you say make it better, we will essentially take you straight over to here. It's a new thing. You can also get to it under the File menu, go to File Tools, where it just says Recover Database, where if you click on it, it will just basically say, yeah, we're going to take your data, we're going to pull it out into a fresh copy, we're going to carry over all the data that's unique to you, all of the stuff about your collection, and then we're going to restore it to health, and you can work with the new thing, and done and dusted. You're good to go. You can move back with your life. And this, again, this is a very rare thing to have happen. Of the thousands and thousands of customers we've had to work high and low to find 3 databases to try to find that where people had this hit them. But again, if that was your database, you'd care a lot. And but anyway, but this worked beautifully for that. It got people back on the road, and it stopped them from having a problem, and they're good to go. Now, the cool thing about this is that we actually can be proactive here, is that the second we see that there's anything that looks hinky about your database, we can say, yeah, can we make this better for you right now, before you carry on with your work? And, and it's just, you've got that one little extra bit of assurance. Building on that, you guys might remember a thing called the optimized database command. If you're an old ComicBase customer going back to before ComicBase 2020, this was a big deal back in the day of having to optimize your database. What optimizing your database means is it's a database term for go through the entire database file, flush out any unused records, make all the database indexes be in exactly linear order, basically write a nice, clean, awesome copy of my database. It makes it smaller, and it improves performance somewhat. And it was really, really critical back when we used what's called the Microsoft Jet database engine. That's the database engine that was used with Microsoft Access, if you remember that one. We used that for many years with ComicBase when we first started out. And the problem is, as ComicBase got bigger and bigger, it got to, we discovered a really kind of unfortunate thing about Access, which is, even though it's a really great database engine, it could be faster. We would definitely figure it out. But the other thing about it is it has a 2 gigabyte file size limit just baked into it hard. No one much talked about, because back in the day, 2 gigabytes was an unthinkable amount of storage. But we started thinking about it. Well, our hard drives all got bigger, and our databases got bigger, and we started having times when, like, okay, I've got a 1.3 gigabyte database, I'm going to download the week's updates, and suddenly it's things like 1.9 gigabytes, and whoa, even if it's just using it as working file, suddenly it starts started getting pretty scary about hitting that limit. As a result, we would have to make you optimize your database pretty frequently, and it took several minutes every time, and it was kind of a pain in the butt. No, I mean, if I joke not joked when we did ComicBase 2020, which was a massive undertaking where we just rewrote the entire program. That took us 4 years. So we rewrote the entire program on a new database and a new language with a new architecture, new interface, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it was a huge effort. But I said, yeah, if the only thing we said that effort was for is that you never need to optimize your database again, we would still be selling like tons and tons of copies, because no one likes taking all those minutes to just go through this part to optimize your database. So with that said, you say, why is the optimized database function still in ComicBase? Well, it's something that databases do. I mean, it's actually useful to be able to go through it and lay the indexes out in perfect order and so forth. The difference is SQLite is so much more efficient about how it works that doing that effort, for the 2-3 minutes, typically only improves your performance by like a couple percent. It's typically not really worth it. Plus, if you sidekick and you back up and do things like that, it'll get optimized anyway. And so we stopped recommending to people that you optimize your database as a matter of course. But the function's still been in the program. I mean, there are people who just really like having things, buttoned down. One thing we've done now in this new version of ComicBase, though, is we've built on what Optimize does to add new file checking and integrity measures, so that now it doesn't just offer you the ability to optimize. It will do that, but you also have the ability to either a quick database integrity check before you optimize, or a full database integrity check where it checks all the foreign keys, make sure everything is exactly in apple pie order structurally about the database before it goes. This takes a few minutes, but if you want to go, if let's say you've been having disk problems and you just want that extra dose of confidence that everything is right in your world, because let's face it, the time you spent organizing your collection, putting all that data together, you'll never get that back. I mean, so we want to take care of your data very, very hard. So this gives you that extra, that extra jolt that says, hey, yeah, my stuff is in good shape. And if you ever doubt it, you can always just go ahead and check it now. All right, last thing I want to talk about in terms of safety on the whole thing, because I think we've kind of beaten this one to death, but as you guys might remember a thing called the ComicBase Database Manager. Now, if you've ever seen this, what it probably came up with is, once upon a time, if you've ever lost your database. So in other words, my database used to be in my ComicBase databases folder, but one day I decided I'm going to clean my disk and I'm going to move some folders around, or I'm going to maybe rename it. I don't want to call it, Pete's ComicBase database. I want to call it Pete's Awesome ComicBase database, whatever the thing is. You might have gotten a message once upon a time that says, hey, we can't find your database because you changed it where it was. So where is it now? And we would ask you that, and a lot of people would get that message and go like, huh? Because it was last Tuesday that they reorganized their hard drive, and then they finally, launched ComicBase, and they don't realize that, boy, I changed where everything was, and so things aren't where their old place were. So ComicBase is asking for help there. What we've done in ComicBase 2025, if that ever happens to you, you actually get a much more useful message than the where the heck is your database message that we used to give you. We actually give you one that says, all right, okay, yeah, having a bit of trouble finding your database, but we've got a couple options here for you. Did you want to have us look for your database, where we can search your drive and find everything that looks like a ComicBase database, and you could say like, yeah, it's that one there. We could say, do you know where it is? In which case, you go ahead and just point straight to it. Or also remember that we also have the ability now to save to the cloud every time you exit. We can be like, let's check and see if this guy's got a cloud backup, because if he does, you did want to just pick up from that one from when you exited last time, which had the cloud back, in which case we could just pull that one down. We'll just pick it up right from there. So we try to make you so you're not stuck in one of these ruts either way. But one of the things that we'll do, if you ever said, I want to search for my database, is it launches a thing called the ComicBase Database Manager. And this is just a separate program over here. And what it does is, if I go ahead and use it, it'll say, hey, do you want to close ComicBase and search this thing? Now when I close, it's going to save a backup, because again, all about the safety here at ComicBase here. So, all right, and now, okay, it saved my backup, and now it's launched the Database Manager. So what the Database Manager is doing is it's searching my hard drive for everything that looks like a ComicBase database, but most importantly, telling me what's in it. So it's like, oh yeah, this one's got 4,437 comics for this much money. This one's, this is the backups, it's got a little bit less and so forth. And you can just, once you find the one you want, all you got to do is point to it and say, use this database, and then you pick up from where you were and you're good to go. Well, we've built on this a little bit where you say, well, while we're scanning databases, why don't we also offer the ability, if I just click this box over here, I'm not going to do it now because it does slow things up, of saying verify the database. So in other words, make sure it's structurally okay. And I actually keep a database on this thing right now, which is intentionally damaged just so I can test that. That's the one that you see in red. But what that'll do is it tells you that not only is your database, over there, but if this thing has been scanning, that it's in good shape. It's not damaged in any way. It can be opened and you're good to go. So those are the things that we've done that, are just really there to make it so that you're just safe using the program, your database. Again, we care about your data, even though we don't necessarily even see your data. We know that you've spent a lot of time, logging your collection, managing and things like that. And we want to make sure that you're in good shape going forward, where you never lose control of what you've been doing. All right, so let me do a quick look down my list of things I want to talk about here, because we're getting toward the end. And I'm going to show you one more cool thing that we've been doing. Other things, there probably, if you've been following along the current updates channel at ComicBase.com, if you look at if you go to the website and you say updates and you say what's been going on in interim, loads and loads of tiny little things have gotten better over the time. Again, anything that's been causing you friction, we've always wanted to, take out of the mix. We want to make it so, you can get down to business, enjoy using the collection, get your stuff done, your work done as quickly as humanly possible, and not have to sweat little stuff. And so that's that's been very much the focus of what we've done with ComicBase 2025 and 25.1 especially, is we really want to just, take the angst out of your life and make it so you can get back to work as quickly as possible and just really enjoy using your comics. All right, so let me see what else is happening over here. Oh, please tell me my computer over there hasn't decided to install a system update, because that would be grand. If so, then I'm going to just point you over to a canned demo, but we'll see. Oh, no, it looks like it's okay. All right, so give me a second here. Sorry, what you guys don't get to see is that I'm actually controlling about 3 different computers, about 17 monitors right now, and it just gets a little chaotic at times. So we'll take it from there. All right. So let me see. Was there anything else I wanted to say? Oh, yes. Question. So how do you get the update? I have a list of things that I forgot to talk about last time that I'm trying not to forget this time. Just a second. Sorry, I am going to restart this one because I do think it's actually trying to update something, because, again, Murphy's Law. All right. So how do you get the update? The good news is, if you are a current ComicBase subscriber, you don't need to do a thing. You've paid for it already. This is part of what ComicBase does for you. Is every time you use ComicBase, when you buy a copy of ComicBase, you got not just the program, not just the database with everything else we've been doing, but you get a year of weekly price, title, content, and program updates. So in other words, every time that we do something new during that year, you're entitled to get it. That's part of what you paid for. And so all you have to do is go under My Account, go to registrations. Whenever you download from there, you'll always see the latest version of the software. And anything you're allowed to download, that is yours. That you feel free to use that. If you are using ComicBase and you've got a current subscription, just go to the internet menu, say check for updates, and you'll see a little message that says that ComicBase 25.1 is available. Just click the download button, run the downloader, and you'll be good to go. And that's all you got to do. You don't need to pay us a thing. If you haven't, somehow you're still using ComicBase 2023 or older, or 2024, and you've let your subscription go, like I say, you walked away for whatever reason, please definitely encourage you, go to the registrations page at ComicBase.com and click that renew/upgrade button. You can get if you've been an existing customer, we'll sell you the upgrade for much less than you paid for the first time. And like I say, we're definitely trying to earn your business. So we hope you'll upgrade and enjoy that. And you get to see everything we do for a year whenever you upgrade. And that includes, if we do ComicBase 2026, which is a pretty good bet because we have a 32-year history of shipping basically yearly. So yeah, it's when that comes out, that'll be one of the things that you're able to do with it. All right, so let me show you one final demo, and then we'll get out of here. All right, so let's get to it. I'm just kicking this off here. How clever of me to have decided to do a system update in the middle of a demo. That's confidence. All right, so sorry, let me set this one up a little bit. By the way, if you want to see probably like a cleverer version of this one, I just released a 4.5-minute long version talking about this new feature where we have of automatically incrementing cover dates and other dates in the program to let you very, very quickly fill in some things like cover dates, throughout the whole thing that just would have been such a chore before, and also how to deal with series that are organized not by issue number but by volume and volume and issue. You probably see these with a lot of newspapers, magazines, and even some really old comic books. Like if you guys remember the old crime detective comic books and so forth, they would go through like 4 different volumes where they were just going 1 through 12, but they would just repeat it every year, because back then comics were a new art form. They hadn't set the conventions up of having sequential issues so much. So indexing those things could be a real pain. We found some ways to make it really easy. All right, so I'm gonna, for this particular demo, I don't have the thing I demoed with last time, which was a free newspaper from Winston-Salem, but I'm gonna just basically grab a copy of the local paper. This is the Williamson County Herald. If you're to believe them, it is the voice of America's greatest county. So yeah, take that, Columbia County. Yeah, anyway, you've got to love the local pride. Anyway, to show off this whole thing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add the Williamson Herald to ComicBase. I can do this because we track newspapers, among other things, so why the heck not? So I'm going to bounce over to your newspapers, and let's go ahead and click new paper. And I'm going to go ahead and type the Williamson Herald. And I looked beforehand, and down the page, I noticed it's made by a company called CMD. I don't know the years published. I know it is weekly, and has always been weekly. So I'll just go ahead and put that in for now. All right. So now this is okay, cool. I'm sitting here with let me look at it. Volume 19, issue 43. Okay, sure, of the paper. Now, this would be a royal pain in the tuchus to try to, unwrap if we were trying to, back in the day, because, back when comic books could only come with issue numbers, we encountered Heavy Metal Magazine. And we actually went to Heavy Metal Magazine and we talked to the publishers. They sent us a floppy disk, true story, of everything that they thought they'd published through all the time. And it was done with volume and issue style numbering, but because we didn't want to make it into 47 volumes worth of title, we want to make it one title. We, our style back in the day was we'd unwrap that storied history of Heavy Metal Magazine into one continuous meta title called Heavy Metal, and we'd say, okay, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then volume 2, number 1 was issue number 8, volume 2, number 2 was issue number 9, and you'd keep going through all this irregular nonsense they had, all the way, until we got to issue number 285 or whatever it was. And that was great. And then we shipped ComicBase, 2.0 or whatever that was, with Heavy Metal Magazine in it. And then we started getting calls from Heavy Metal Magazine fans who said, yeah, you missed an issue. And we're like, what do you mean we missed an issue? We had the floppy disk from the publisher. We went through the list. We counted it all down, and we turned it into the thing. We put the notes with the stuff, and and they're like, yeah, no, dude, I'm holding it right in my hands. I'll send you a picture. You missed an issue. And then later on, they'd be like, you missed another issue. There were actually a total of 3 issues that we'd missed, even though we were going from the publisher's own records. So we at that point had to insert like issue 262.2, or 268.2 or something. It was crazy. It was absolutely maddening. And we decided that if once we started, we're getting into magazines and newspapers in a big way, we're never doing that again. We're just asking for trouble if we start trying to unwrap these multi-volume series into a single series. We have to do something else. What we came up with is the idea of having optional season style numbering. So when you've got something like a magazine like Heavy Metal or something, if we were doing it all over again, because we've done it once, we're not changing it now. But if we were doing the next Heavy Metal, or in this case, the Williamson Herald, I'm not going to make 19 different titles for Williamson Herald Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4. That'd be nuts. I'm also not going to try to unwrap them into a single series, 1 through issue 900 or whatever it is, and then notate what they were. No, instead what I'm going to do is we're use season style numbering here. And I'm going to say, okay, this obviously started with number 1, and then it went through, and as of today, it went through volume 19, number 43. So you just write it like that, and you say, I'm using season style numbering. All right, and all right, I'm going to say I don't actually own any copies of this one. I'm probably going to throw the copy I do have away. It's nominally about $1, but I'm not really 100% certain of the cover price all through its history. So I'm actually going to put $1 as the value, but I'm going to leave the cover price blank for now because I'm just, you like to be right. And I'm going to not do anything else right now. But now I'm going to index 19 years of Williamson Herald, and it will take this long. Ready and go. That's it. Okay. So what I did there is by saying season style numbering and going from, issue 1 to issue, and I'm scrolling down here. Here we are. You see how it changed. It automatically added in the notes the volume and issue number as it went. And it did that while creating. So here's, issue 315 is volume 3, number 15, etc. It did this all the way down. If I hit control page down, I can see it goes all the way down to the end. And that's really cool. I've got, and this is 900, I can see from the new status bar, 979, items. This is the entire history of the Williamson Herald done in about a second. Well, that's cool, but I can do a little bit better. So what about the cover dates, right? Okay, you got volume 6. When was that from? I don't know. So what you want to do is you want to fill in the cover dates. But, okay, so this current issue is from 10/24/2024. And I know it's weekly, but I really don't want to go back in time and try to say, well, okay, that would be this. Means this is from the 17th. This would be from the 10th. This would be from the 3rd. And then what's 4 from September? And that would be tedious in the extreme. I do not want to do this. So, people are either going to leave the cover dates blank, or what you could do now is something actually pretty darn cool. I'm going to click over here. I'm going to hit Control A, which is shortcut for select all, right? Nothing special about that. But now I'm going to go down to edit. I'm going to say quick change. Now, with quick change, you can change any field you want. I'm going to choose cover date in this case. And I'm going to set it to, all right, here's 10/24/2024. That's the one I just entered. I'm going to set that across the whole series for all those 979 issues. But I'm going to have it automatically increment them weekly. It's doing it weekly because it knows that this is a weekly paper. I told it when I created the title, except I'm going to do it in reverse order. So I'm not going to start from the start and fill forward to fill out the issues. I'm going to go from the end and fill backward. And just by doing this, I can say make changes and go. And in, again, like 1 second, I now have the entire publishing history of the Williamson Herald all the way back to its first issue, which apparently happened January 26, 2006. So that's it. And this is really, really super helpful when you are adding any kind of, periodical, any of those old magazines, any of those old newspapers where part of the information, you don't know the rest. Just highlight them all, hit the quick change, set whatever the date range is. You can have an auto increment going forward, going backward. So if you know the start of it, but you know that it ran for 3 years after the issue you're holding in your hand, you can roll forward. If you are holding the latest issue and you know it ran for 30 years before then, you can go backward. And this is a great way to very, very quickly fill in some of these date range type of issues. If you also want to do things for like when you bought an issue and you know that you only shop on Wednesday on Comic Day, and you want to set your custom date field for like when you bought it, you could do the same kind of thing. So anyway, that is cool new stuff that we've got in ComicBase 2025 version 25.1. I hope I've convinced you that a point release is actually interesting this time. And anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Anyway, guys, we'll see you on the next live stream. Do hit like and subscribe if this is the sort of thing that you like, and because it's the sort of thing we do. And we will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.